fellow scientists. Today we are going to be playing the mouse game. This is a nice game that models natural selection. We're going to be using some imaginary mice in two different environments, and we're going to see how natural selection plays out. Why I like this game so much is because it incorporates some of the genetics information that we learned. You're going to be playing a card game that's based on the alleles that the mice have for fur color. So we're going to be looking at two different fur colors for these mice, white and brown. So if you're thinking about alleles, the first thing that you would probably want to know is, alright, what's dominant and what's recessive? So in the mouse game, white is going to be the dominant fur color. And so we learned that there are two ways that you could have the dominant trait. The first would be a homozygous dominant genotype, two capital alleles, or two dominant alleles, or you could be heterozygous, what we used to call hybrid. That would be a dominant and a recessive allele. The only way to have brown fur, which is the recessive trait, would be to be homozygous recessive, two lowercase w's in this case. Playing the mouse game is really pretty simple. The most important thing is to make sure that your workspace is nice and neat and organized. You can see that on the left side here I have my yellow event cards in a nice neat pile, and then below that I have my white mouse cards. These are the cards that have the alleles for mouse fur color. I then have two separate areas for piles. There's the dead pile, and then our nice happy live pile. These are mice that are going to die during the mouse game, mice that will live during the mouse game. And then I have my data table. This is where I'm going to be recording my data during the trials of the mouse game. You can see the top table is the white sand dunes where we'll be starting, and then the second table is for a brown forest floor environment. So to play the mouse game, step one, we're going to pull two mouse cards. These are going to be our two alleles for our mouse fur color. And you can see that I pulled two lowercase w's. So that's going to mean we have a brown mouse. So what I'm going to do is make a little tally mark in trial 1, generation 1, for brown mice. Now the fun part. We determine our mouse's fate. So I'm going to pull one of these yellow event cards, and we're going to see what happens. Alright, I pulled the C card. C stands for contrast. If our mouse contrasts with its environment, it's going to die. Now right now we're in the white sand dune environment. It's white. We have a brown mouse. So that contrasts with our environment, so our brown mouse is going to die. Poor mouse. So in our death column, I'm going to put a tally mark here. So I had one brown mouse, but he died. Poor mouse. Because he's dead, I'm going to take his alleles and put them in my dead pile. The event card can just go back to the side, and now I'm ready to pull some more cards. So I'm going to pull two mouse cards, and look at that, another brown mouse. Let's see what happens to him. Ah, Mr. Brown Mouse, you just got attacked by some predator and you're dead. You contrast with your environment. So we had a brown mouse, but he died again. Once again, he'll go into the dead pile. We'll get rid of that card, and we're ready for our third mouse. Alright, third mouse. Ooh, a dominant allele. So right off the bat, you should be thinking, hey, we have a white mouse finally. And our white mouse is heterozygous. So I'm going to put a tally mark for my white mouse. And now let's determine his fate. A C card. So we have a white mouse in a white sand dune. It's a white mouse scurrying along on white sand. That mouse is going to survive. It does not contrast with its environment. So I don't need to write anything else in these rows. It didn't die, so it's okay. So I'm going to take these alleles and put them in the live pile. That mouse is going to live and reproduce for our next generation. Let's keep going. Another white mouse. We have a dominant allele. And again, this one's heterozygous. I'll put my tally mark here. Now let's see what happens. Uh-oh. A P card. P card stands for predator. It doesn't matter what color your mouse is, it's going to get eaten by a predator. So these cards go into our dead pile. And now we have a dead white mouse. So we'll put a tally mark there. The event card goes away. And you probably have a good idea as to what's going on now. You pull two mouse cards. We have a white mouse, tally it, and let's determine its fate. Ooh, another new card. Here's the S card. S stands for survive. And so no matter what happens, what color your mouse is, it survives. What a lucky mouse. Alright, so we have another white mouse. We'll tally it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my 5th mouse, so I'll keep it organized like that. And we have the D card. D stands for dead. So it doesn't matter if your mouse is brown, if it's white, it's dead. So poor mouse, you're going in the dead pile too. And we're just going to keep pulling our mouse cards, tallying what color they are, and then determining their fate. Here's a C card with a white mouse, so this mouse will live. And just make sure you give yourself enough room, because you're going to make quite a bit of mice. You're going to want to make sure that you don't start running out of room. Alright, so now that we've finished generation 1, we're ready to start generation 2. But we're going to have to prepare a few things first. So first we have all these cards in the dead pile. These are dead mice, and dead mice aren't able to reproduce. So we're going to take this pile of cards and we're going to put it out of the way so we're not going to get confused and use it. All these cards in the live pile, these are mice that survived the first generation. So they're going to be able to reproduce and pass on their genes to their offspring. So as we learned with sexual reproduction, when two organisms reproduce, it's basically shuffling the genetic deck of cards. So shuffle your cards, shuffle them good, get them all those alleles mixed up, and then you can put them back down. And then do the same with your event cards. You'll want to make sure that those are shuffled as well. Once you feel like they're good and shuffled, you're ready to start generation 2. So same rules apply. Pick 2 mouse cards. You'll see that here we have a dominant and a recessive allele. So I have a white mouse. So I'll make a tally mark for generation 2. And now I'll pull my event card. And it's a C card. That kills mice that contrast with their environment. So we have a white mouse on the white sand dune. He's going to survive just fine. So we put him in the live pile. We'll pull another mouse card. We have another white mouse. We'll tally him. We'll pull an event card, and it's another C card. So we have another white mouse surviving. So we're going to go through all that with all of the remaining cards, and then we'll go on to generation 3. Alright, part 2 of the mouse game, we're changing our environments. So in part 1 we were looking at a white sand dune environment. So any white mice that came on in that environment survived with the C card. Any brown mice that got the C card, they died because they contrasted with their environment. Here on the forest floor, brown mice are going to survive with the C card, but this time the white mice are going to die. So we play the game the exact same way. Make sure your mouse cards are shuffled, make sure your event cards are shuffled, and begin pulling your cards. So our first mouse has 2 recessive alleles, so we have a brown mouse. So I'll put a tally mark here for him, and I'll pull my event card. So here we go, we have a C card. Now before, this would have meant the brown mouse dies. But here in the forest floor, this brown mouse is going to blend in. He does not contrast with his environment. So he's going to survive. I'm going to put him in the live pile and move on to the next mouse. Here we have a dominant and a recessive allele. So that is a white mouse. So we'll put our tally mark, and now we'll determine his fate. Here's our C card. So here's our white mouse in the brown forest floor environment. He contrasts with his environment. So that means he dies. So I'm going to put a tally mark for a white mouse death in our generation 1 row. Those 2 cards go into the dead pile. Pull some more cards. Here's another brown mouse. So I'll tally him. And here's a C card. So he survives. Put him in the live pile. Here's a white mouse. with a C card, so he died. And we'll keep going through our cards until we're through all of them for Generation 1. Then the same thing as when we did the forest floor. The live pile mice will be shuffled, and we'll redo those for Generation 2. And the dead mice pile will be set aside. We will not use them. So that's it. That's the mouse game. Tomorrow you'll play the game. You'll do all 3 generations for the white sand, and you'll do all 3 generations for the forest floor. You'll then have all the information that you need to calculate death rates, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So enjoy.